Hopefully, let's see, 1 second. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting now, basically. Running a bit behind today. Oh, God, I look so sweaty. What's going on? You were wrong, Daniel. The weather didn't cool down this week. It just stayed hot. We had a wild storm on Monday, I think it was, like proper like torrential rain for about an hour, and then it just went sunny again. It's just been nice all week.
All right, I am now recording.
I am now recording.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 316 for June 16th, 2023. Hey everyone, Dean and Rubino here, joined Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. We have, of course, all the latest news on Windows 11 through those insider builds that came out this week, including some major changes to File Explorer and more. We'll go through a quick rundown of the Xbox Showcase, which happened last Sunday, and our gaming team absolutely crushed. And the good news here is, well, there's actually a lot of really good games coming out, and they were well received. So maybe Xbox will have a small fighting chance against PlayStation. Probably not. But the good news is, even if you're not on Xbox, a lot of these games, actually all these games, are coming to PC as well, which is going to be a lot of fun for myself. Intel is updating its branding around its processors. I'll break that down and why I think it's a good thing, even though they still face some challenges in how they name stuff. I'll explain why that is. Review roundup. We had a bunch of stuff going up, including the ThinkPad X1 Yoga Gen 8. And Zach reviewed a mini PC, and we're going to be doing actually another mini PC pretty soon too from Lenovo. That'll be in a couple coming weeks. Lenovo's new one actually is really nice because it's well, it looks less dorky and industrial than the one Zach reviewed and what are typically found in mini PCs, which aren't really exciting looking. And then, yeah, we got Thing of the Week as well to go through there, as well as any breaking news that happens during the podcast, which actually happens kind of frequently on Fridays as companies tend to do news dumps for the weekend. And we have an extended weekend here in the United States. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens. But anyway, Zach, how you doing on this fine Friday?
I am not too bad. How are you?
Hanging in there. It's been an interesting week. I know, well, I don't want to complain about me being tired, but I know our gaming team is pretty exhausted as they had a very busy week between the news that happened last week and now this week. And there's just been a lot of new game announcements. And the reason for this, of course, is because there's no E3 anymore. So
Yeah.
a lot of this used to be just E3 coverage that we would just crush for 3 to 4 days. And now it's spread out. You know, Microsoft does its own events. And to be fair, from someone who runs a website, this is a much better method. I think it's also better for the companies. It's better for the employees because they can focus on stuff a little bit more. It's better for the readers because you just get so much stuff dumped on you in 3 days. It's like you're going to miss a lot of things. And even with everything that Xbox announced, there was still stuff even I missed. So a lot of cool stuff, and we probably won't even mention Diablo 4, which I still have not yet played, but it's on that long to-do list, so maybe it'll happen eventually. But let's get first to the big Windows 11 news. There were a couple of insider builds that shipped this week with some interesting changes. We do have a full change log from Morrow on our site of all the changes that have happened in the recent updates, all in one guide, so you can look that up to kind of go through all that stuff. There's been some minor changes, I know, to like cellular activity and optimizations there. But Zach, why don't you break it down for the build and what's new, what's kind of cool that we should be aware of?
So this week's builds are actually a little bit more noticeable than the previous ones have been because they actually have some stuff in them to try out. Starting with Windows Ink, Microsoft is finally bringing the ability to ink into text fields and text boxes using a pen. That's something iPadOS has been able to do for a while. It's something even my Samsung Galaxy is able to do. Windows, for some reason, has not been able to do it, but now they're bringing the feature to Windows 11 later this year, and it's now in preview starting with build 23481. So as Microsoft says, Windows Ink is being modernized to allow users to enable inking directly onto edit fields. In addition, we're improving the accuracy from the recognition technology and a scratch-out gesture for when users need to make edits. The goal with Windows Ink is to let users use their pen and handwrite anywhere they can type on their Windows device. So yeah, right now it only works in the United States, which is very typical for Microsoft, but it is something they're working on and will likely roll out to more languages and markets in the future. This would have been a really cool feature for like a Windows phone, but still Windows tablets will benefit from it as well, I think.
It is weird. It's like, I'm not, underestimating the work that goes into making all this happen, but let's remember that Microsoft had tablet and inking very early on.
Yes.
I remember being in grad school in 2001 and like my professor had a tablet with inking and even I didn't have that. And I was just like, whoa, that's really cool. So it's been over 20 years, which, man, I was in grad school over 20 years ago. Good Lord. It goes to show you how long it's taken them to sort of build out this category. Now, part of that is simply waiting for the technology to catch up, because it's not like inking was fantastic in 2001. You've seen a lot of focus on latency and try to make even like the screen and the pen now with haptics feel like you're actually writing, right? Those are really new innovations. And it's not like Apple, Apple did the pencil, of course, which was well received, but it's not like it's received like they're on Gen 4 and it's like 10 times better than the first one, right? We've kind of like plateaued, it seems like, with a lot of this technology. That said, this does feel like and again, to be clear, like there has always been handwriting support in Windows, and it's been in how it worked before. What's different now is you could ink in any window in any dialog box in Windows. But how it worked was it would bring up a little sub window that you would ink in, and then it would translate to text and insert it into the actual box you wanted. It's fine, and it worked, but it's not as natural as, say, just writing directly into any text box in Windows across the board, which is what this does, making it much more natural and straightforward. So it takes out a little of an extra layer. So they've always, like I said, they've had this feature for many years now, and it works pretty well. But this is a much better, more natural evolution of this technology. And I think it just makes people presumably want to use the pen more as a navigation device in Windows. It's going to be I think it's going to be a really cool feature. I'm actually really excited about this one.
Yeah, I've tried to use it on my Galaxy, but I think the Galaxy is just too small for it to be comfortable. Like I'll try and write into a text field, and because, say, for example, like a text box along the bottom of an app, if you try and type into it, like it's just so cramped at the bottom of the screen. It's kind of annoying. But maybe it's different on a tablet with the larger canvas. Perhaps you can sort of get your hand flowing a little bit easier. So yeah, I'm excited to try that as well. So in addition to the Windows Ink stuff, we also have a new widget, ladies and gentlemen. This one is Focus Session Widgets, and it's a simple press a button and it starts a countdown, which is tied to the focus feature in the Alarms and Clock app. I think now it's just called Clock. And you can also basically get that exact same functionality if you click on the date and time button in the bottom right-hand corner of your system tray. They've added a widget. Good on them, I guess. In addition to that, Microsoft is actually removing a few things from File Explorer. Now, Microsoft refers to these as old features that most people aren't using. I'll let you be the judge of that, but here's the following options in the File Explorer that they are taking away. Hide folder merge conflict, always show icons, never thumbnails, display file icon on thumbnails, display file type information on folder tips, hide protected OS files, show drive letters, show pop-up description for folder and desktop items, show encrypted or compressed NTS FS files in color, and use sharing widget. I do agree that certainly some of those features most people probably aren't using. However, show drive letters and hide protected OS files. I feel like I turn those on or off all the time. Maybe that's just me, but yeah, they're literally taking these away. I'm not too sure why. I'm guessing it's to declutter the file explorer as it gets updated to this new interface later this year. I don't know, but they are being taken away, so keep that in mind. And then lastly, another thing that's technically been taken away in this build, and to the surprise of I imagine nobody, Microsoft is removing the Teams chat integration from the taskbar on Windows 11. When Windows 11 launched, and indeed in the current shipping version of Windows 11, by default, there's I think 4 or 5 system icons, and one of them is a chat icon, and that is a dedicated integrated flyout menu. When you click on it, it's like a little UI that pulls in your recent chats from the free version of Microsoft Teams, and then from there you can click into them and continue chatting and so on. That menu is going away. That system icon is being removed, and it's being replaced with a pinned app icon, that being the Teams free app, which has always been there on Windows 11. It's in the start menu. What they're essentially doing is replacing that menu, as I just mentioned, with just the icon that you can click on from the start menu on the taskbar now, and it will just launch the Teams free client like it normally would. So the integration is going away, essentially, is the news there, and I'm not surprised by this. I don't think anybody was using it. I know I wasn't. I would have liked to, but I couldn't get anybody to use it with me, so there's really no point in trying to use it. And so Microsoft's just like, okay, fine, we'll move that. If you want to use Teams, we'll pin it to the taskbar by default. You can just use the app. I don't, the integration I think is unnecessary. And frankly, I agree. I would have loved to have seen them turn that flyout into like a platform or give it an API so developers can tap into it. Yeah, like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or Telegram even. That would have been fantastic. But no, Microsoft decided to just kill it because that's the way they roll.
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about this. Like, in one sense, I give them credit for trying it because it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
It's just that the fundamental problem here is Teams for Consumer was always a weird afterthought. And I feel like, the team behind Teams were tasked with like, all right, we got this cool thing that's really taking off in business. Although a lot of that is forced, right, by IT departments, not necessarily because people love Teams, although that's probably changed a bit. I'm curious about how people feel about it versus Slack these days, as Teams has had significant revisions. But Teams for Consumers has just never, it was never organically a thing that happened, right? And the product that they gave us was sort of like this weird, it wasn't chat focused. It didn't feel chat focused, which is what I think people were expecting and wanted. Instead, it turned into this whole planner thing, and there's a shared calendar and all this. And all that stuff is fine. Like a lot of other apps have that. It's just those are like buried in sub menus and are sub features, and the chat is the main feature. But even having gone down that route, they still have GroupMe and Skype, which basically do the same thing. And so they would have GroupMe, Skype, and then Team Chat, and at what point it's sort of like, which one are you focusing on? And we talked about GroupMe just a few weeks ago because that's still big in colleges. I still think GroupMe could have been their Telegram play, but it's probably too late for that now. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's too late for that now. And Skype is just a de facto voice video calling app that a lot of people still use that, Telegram and WhatsApp have also brought those features over. So it's probably losing ground to those. But Skype is still a well-known brand name. So they just got, they went off in too many directions. They never had a focused messaging strategy. It's not just them. You could say the same thing about Google. How many times has Google bought, rebranded, launched, various messaging apps? Is Duo even still around? I don't even know. I don't think it is.
No, I think it is, but I think it's just integrated now into the phone and messaging apps on Android. I think
maybe it goes to show you just
right?
how but they've also had a very messy strategy over the years. So it's not a trivial thing, but they really should have been focused on launching a consumer chat system dedicated years ago, back when there was still a chance, and just focused on building that out and then having that so it could be cross-platform and cross-app, right? So this was always a thing too with Skype was like Skype did its own video, but Skype video doesn't power Teams, but Skype video did power BI, I think it was, or whatever what was the previous before Teams that had
Skype for
an app
Business.
that did yes, yeah, Skype for Business. Like it, so they're just kind of all over the place and it was a cool, like I said, it was a cool idea executed way too late on a product that was also way too late and not well thought out. And that's a shame because I still think this idea, I still don't know why they just can't have a Microsoft Messenger. Like, let's get real here, right? Like, if you have a Microsoft account, why not just have a chatbot that is just linked to your account? And it just
Yeah.
shows other friends and family who are
It
on
could
Windows 11.
Yeah, it could even be like linked to your Xbox profile because messaging is a big thing on
Right.
Xbox, and it could like just basically
Yeah.
be one account for all of your Microsoft services, and it could include Teams work, it could include Outlook, it could include
Yeah.
Xbox and Skype, and it just has it, and that's what that menu should be, just the social hub for Microsoft accounts. But instead, it's nothing. I don't even know why. They didn't even allow it to work with Teams for work. Like it's literally Teams for
You're
consumer
right.
only. That's crazy. That is insane.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you could have made the argument that had they made this for Teams for work, it would have been way more successful.
Yeah,
Like,
fully. I agree. Yeah.
like people would have actually made use for it. And it could have just been included maybe in the pro version of Windows or as a separate install or something like that. But I still, when this first launched, you and I had this conversation. I was just like, it would be just neat if you could have like, remember you were able to like pin people to your taskbar, like through the contacts and stuff like
Hmm.
that. That was a thing. Like if I could just pin like Zach, my SO, and a couple people to my taskbar, or maybe just have a single icon that when you hover over, it expands into their faces or their, avatar and you can click it. You can chat with them. You can see if they're online or not. You can do a video call with them. And it would be a really cool killer feature if you could just drag and drop files to send them. Oh, here's a document. Here's an image. Here's a music file. Here's whatever. And you just do it, and then they hit receive, and they just download it directly, right? Uh, they could easily do something like that they do something like this kind of via drop, uh, which is powered by OneDrive, but it's to yourself. But like, why not just make that available so you can share it with other people with Microsoft accounts? Like that would be such a neat idea because then you're always on a PC. And if someone else is on a PC too, you can directly communicate with them, share files with them directly instead of going through a service. Like use the whole drag and drop thing. I don't understand why that was never considered to be an option. Because
Yeah.
then you could argue like Windows 11, the social OS, right? It's an operating system that allows you to connect to your friends and family uh, who you're already managing through Microsoft 365 and
Yeah.
directly contact them. You could share location as an option, right? Which is good for people with laptops and people with children and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't know, this stuff like you can brainstorm it, and it's just kind of like yeah, like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Let me know if I'm crazy. If this sounds like a stupid idea or a good idea. I think it sounds like a good idea. I don't know why they
Yeah.
wouldn't do this, but instead they did this weird thing with Teams, which no one cares about, and even
Yeah.
you and I don't use it.
Yeah,
So
well, we've said it a million times, but the problem with using Teams is the name Teams.
yeah,
Nobody wants to use an app called Teams. Nobody.
yeah. I mean, even GroupMe is like it's a
Mm.
weird name, but it works, right?
It's
It's
way more
something different.
sociable. Yeah, absolutely. Teams is so clinical. It's so like professional setting. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
Teams. Like, ugh, get away from me.
and it's a
I'll
very
just
Microsoft move for
yeah.
enterprise, right? It makes sense, but yeah, for consumers, yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, Microsoft seems to have this I guess thought process that names don't matter, but they do. There is names don't matter in the enterprise space
Yeah,
for sure. You can name things anything you want in enterprise. It's something boring and long. It doesn't matter. In consumer markets, names absolutely matter. People care about the apps that they have to install. And if there's an ugly name on their or icon on their homepage, they don't want it. And Teams
and
is that.
they even got this part wrong, isn't it? It's called what? Is it? It's Team for Consumers, right?
It's technically just called Microsoft Teams, but um, it's not, because of that's obviously because Microsoft Teams for consumer and Microsoft Teams for work are two entirely separate products. So what they actually did on Windows 11 is Microsoft Teams free, the consumer version, is just called Microsoft Teams, and then Teams for work is called Microsoft Teams, in brackets, work or school.
See,
It's
like
crazy.
what I'm saying is like how they screwed up here was the what everybody was calling it before this was even fully announced. We just knew it was coming. We all had a name for it. We all call it Teams for Family
Teams for Life, I think it was. People haven't called it Teams
or
for
Teams for
Life.
Life, something
Yeah.
like that. Either or. Um, but that was always which Teams for Family at least.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If you have a family, you're like, oh, what is that? That sounds
We're
kind
a
of
team.
interesting. Yeah, we're a team. Uh, Teams for Life is a little bit more out there, but yeah, they flubbed on the naming definitely. They could have like rebranded it completely, but kept a lot of the same features. They don't need to link the two because I don't see the
Yeah, right.
connection.
The client could be identical. Just have a different brand for it. Call it Skype. It could just be a
Yeah,
new
call it
version of
Skype.
Skype or whatever. I don't know. Whatever. Group me, you name it. I don't care. Just Teams. The fact that it
Dude,
shared the name Teams is
Microsoft Messenger.
yes, MSN.
That's all they need to
I
call it.
fully agree.
Everybody would be like, oh hell yeah, I remember MS
Yeah.
Messenger. That thing was
Right.
awesome.
Yeah.
Remember you can
Totally.
like the best thing was you can get it you can nudge someone and it would shake
Yeah.
the app.
Yeah. You're good. Yeah. I wonder
That
if
was
that's
like
still an API
awesome.
in
Like they
Windows.
had
That's cool.
yeah, like just bring that back. You got the nostalgia play for us old people.
Hmm.
It's a simple name, Microsoft Messenger. It explains itself. You link it to their Microsoft account. It's opt in for how much info you want to share. It's opt in for your people you want to connect with and show you're online. Just like, I mean, people know how to use this stuff, right? You know, appear invisible, so I'm not online, or,
Yeah.
don't let this person see me. Like, this stuff is pretty, like, easy. So I don't know why they just don't bring that back. Like, and even today, like I was saying, how it's pretty late right now, right? We got Telegram, we have WhatsApp and stuff like that. I still think if they did a Microsoft Messenger, it would still have a fighting chance. Especially the reason Teams worked and was so successful, as I mentioned, wasn't because people were like, "Oh my God, Teams is so good, it's so awesome." It's because they just included it with Microsoft 365, and IT
Right.
departments just got it. All they had to do was turn some software on the back end. They didn't have to pay for it, and it just turned on, and we got this cool new feature. So IT was like, done. Like, why were we going to pay for Slack? Because you had to pay for Slack separately.
Yeah.
So it was like an easy sell. Like, if you just made this with MSN Messenger and link it to their Microsoft account, done. You already got, you just locked in a huge audience. Not everybody has to use it, but they're all just going to get a pop up that way, hey, introducing Microsoft Messenger. You might have remembered it from the 90s. It's back, and if you don't want to use it, turn off these features and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I would love to from some from Microsoft, even off the record, just to explain to me why that's a dumb idea, like, or why that would never work. I would love to have that conversation because maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's
Right.
like something obvious, but I
Yeah.
think they could still pull that off if they wanted to today. Just build it right into Windows 12. I don't know.
I think part of it is Microsoft kind of doesn't want to rely on nostalgia for products, like because they don't do anything with the Clippy brand either, and I feel like Clippy is stronger
What
than
they
ever these
have,
days.
they brought back Clippy though. They use it on their socials. They made a an
Yeah, but not as a
emoji for it.
product.
Like
It's not like
not
a
as a
product.
product. I don't think
Yeah,
they should bring it back as a product, but they've leaned into the nostalgia for it at least, as opposed to just ignoring it. They used to just ignore
they
that,
did used to
you
just
know.
ignore it. You're right. Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe some from Microsoft is hearing this and wants a promotion, and it's gonna be like, I have this great idea
Yeah,
that I
right.
came up
You
with.
can have this idea for
Uh,
free.
why don't we bring back Microsoft Messenger? It's fine. Take credit for me. I don't care. But still, I still think they should. That would be such a cool feature to have in Windows. But
Me too.
whatever. All right, is that it for all the Windows 11 stuff, or is there
Yeah,
more?
that's all the Windows 11 news of the week, to my knowledge. Oh, I guess we should also mention that the Moment 3 update did technically officially launch this week. It came out Tuesday, rolled
All
into
right.
the Patch Tuesday release. So if you're installing monthly security updates, which you most likely are, you would have likely gotten the Moment 3 update if you didn't already have it. I assume most people listening to this podcast probably already had it anyway. So no, not news there, to be honest. And no, did you notice how little of a deal? Microsoft made no big deal about it. It just sort of rolled out. That's kind of the point. These moment updates are supposed to just appear. They're not supposed to be special moments, but they it just showed up. There it is. Their new features are now available to just users everywhere, and Microsoft didn't even make a blog post about it.
Let's talk about how awesome my widgets feature is, especially on a couple devices now, including the main PC I'm using right now. I hit widgets, and it just shows loading screens, and nothing ever shows up.
Nice, good.
The
Mine
weather
works.
is even the weather's grayed out.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
Have you tried restarting your computer?
I had to because I'm still having some weird issues with the monitor. Yeah, I don't know. I've seen this on other laptops too. It's just like it doesn't just populate. It's like,
Weird. Mine's
cool.
working, which is good. But mine was crashing a lot the last few weeks, but they seem to have fixed it the last week or so, and it's working fine now. I can see some stories here, most of which are all depressing. But yeah, mine's weird. Like my widgets are on the left now, and then the feeds on the right. On my other PC, it's the other way around. The feeds on the left and the widgets are on the right. I guess they're like A/B testing a bunch of different layouts now, but every one of my PCs has a different layout. It's wild.
Fun stuff. All right, let's move on to the Xbox Games Showcase. If you don't know, as we mentioned earlier, E3 is not a thing anymore, so Microsoft hosts its own events, which it's kind of always done at E3 anyway. They've always had like their own stadium and they announce stuff. I used to go to it. It was a really fun event. But yeah, so what did he use this for? Well, basically announcing all the biggest games that were at this event. We have a cool video that Miles Dompier did. Dompier, sorry. He did called Big Xbox Games in 5 minutes. So it's just a video rundown of basically everything that was announced. So you can go check that out. My big thing with video games is I always got to see the trailer for it to know what they're talking about. I'm actually a little disappointed in our team here, though, because they did do the Xbox Game Showcase 2023 Best in Show Awards. And they didn't pick one of my favorite games, which I'm kind of shocked about. Which,
real quick, Dan. Real quick. Your mic sounds not great. I don't know if you've moved away from it or something, but
maybe it's that. Is this better?
Yeah, way better. My goodness.
Okay. Sorry. Actually, I should have maybe I'll put my own take into this roundup post. My favorite thing was Fable. I don't even know Fable. I never played the originals. I have no idea what's about it. I've heard lots of controversies. Yeah, I've heard lots of controversies because there's supposed to be a new Fable game a couple of years ago, and then it got canceled, and then the studio behind Fable went out of business or something. Yeah. So that was a big deal. But we knew there was something new coming, and they finally showed the first trailer. And what was cool about this trailer was going into this event, Microsoft was very clear, and I thought this was a good strategy, that all the video we're going to show, all the trailers, is in-game footage.
Yes.
Right? Because this is the thing with video games. Like they show these dramatic movie trailers for the game, and it's a cinematics, right? And it's sometimes a lot of cutscenes and stuff, and it's like not the game itself. So yeah, it looks like a really good game, but then you cut the actual gameplay and it's just like a 2D shooter or something like that. And it's just like not as exciting. So they made a policy that everything they're going to show was actual in-game play. And Fable got some controversy because people are like, I thought you were going to show in-game play. That looks like a really good trailer. That's hilarious. And they're like, no, that's the game. Like what we showed you is the game. And if you haven't gone watch the Fable trailer, I encourage you to do so. Zach, did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched the showcase.
Okay.
With my girlfriend, who was on the sofa, funny enough, and she's not a gamer at all. But that Fable trailer, spoilers if you've not seen it, stars a character who's quite famous in the UK. I don't know if he's as famous in the US. The guy from the IT crowd is the guy. Yes. That's who he is. Richard Io. I can't remember his last name.
Yeah, no one knows how to pronounce his last name. Richard Io. Yeah, people in America know him if you're fancy.
Sure.
Because like people who are like there's a certain demographic of Americans who love British comedies and go out of their way to
Uh-huh.
watch them. I'm one of them. So I've seen him on numerous things. He was on Garth Menengi's Dark, what was it, Dark Tales or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's been in lots of stuff in the UK. Yeah, 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 loads.
yeah, like because a lot of the comedy groups and people in the UK, it's a smaller country, and so they all kind of like appear in each other's stuff.
Yeah,
Um, he also does the voice on Apple and Carrot, which is a cartoon in the United States. I wonder if that's
interesting.
still on actually. I think it's Apple and Onion. No, Apple and Onion, not Carrot. It's actually a really good cartoon. I should start watching it again. It's really funny. But he does a voice on it, and it's great. But yeah, he's pretty well known. This trailer was so funny. It starts off
Yes.
interviewing him, and he's talking about his vegetables and fruits and agriculture and how he thinks that makes him the real hero. And then they keep showing the protagonist of the story, who's a female. They don't give her a name, but she looks pretty awesome. And like he's like kind of riffing on heroes with their big, stupid, oversized weapons. And they like show her walking, and she has this like giant sword on her back. And people are kind of cheering her on, and then someone just goes "wanker." She turns around and is like, "What the hell?" Like
Yeah.
her the facial expression they did for that scene, I thought was hilarious because it was so natural, and it was just brilliant comedy timing. And like, yeah, they show her like taking on Beast, like she something with like there's a little bird, and then like she kicks it, and it flies through the air
Yeah.
over to the hill, and like some like surf is just like, well done, like all right then, and like totally unimpressed with her. Uh, and then the spin is while Richard is like talking about growing vegetables and stuff, they're showing her with these giant vegetables, and she eventually reaches like a big castle and like gets in, and then it cuts to him, and he's like, hold on a second, and he gets up, and turns out he's the giant, and she's like the hero,
Yeah.
and like trying to fight him. And then they show like a lot of the gameplay is just her running throughout the room, and he's putting out traps, and she's like fighting him, and it's like you're fighting a giant, and it looks amazing. It looks really really cool. uh I thought the comedy timing in this trailer was brilliant. The way that they did the sleight of hands, all the little jokes, the visuals look incredible, and it was all done on Xbox Series X. So even on
Yes.
PC, it should even look better if you have a higher end card and all that kind of stuff. But I thought, as someone who's never played Fable and knows nothing about it, I was just like, that looked hilarious. I like that's a game I would totally play.
Yeah.
I'll let Zach chime in a second on what his favorite was, but I'll just go through some of the big ones that our team chose. So Jez picked for best space game. It wasn't a hard category. Was Starfield, and we'll talk a little bit more
Yes.
about Starfield because Starfield's one of these games that it's highly anticipated and a lot's riding on it
Yeah.
because it's like a big deal for Xbox. And so far, Xbox has had a lot of whiffs recently.
Yeah.
Uh, and this game has been received very well. Looks really impressive, and it looks like it. This is like early Diablo 4 vibes, right? Where people are like, "Oh, this is gonna be good. This is good stuff." So that's awesome because they need a win here, and that game looks fantastic. I'll let you explain that one in a second. South of Midnight was also really popular. Star Wars Outlaws. I haven't watched this trailer yet, but this looks also really cool. Rebecca on our team, she says that as excited as I was to see more trailers from some of the biggest Xbox exclusives, uh, including Hellblade 2, which, yeah, Hellblade 2 looks amazing. The most interested for her was Star Wars Outlaws. In many ways, this game looks like a return to form to the LucasArts, now Lucasfilm Games, Star Wars Adventures of the 90s and early 2000s, starring Kyle Katarn. Um, yeah, and I agree. This does look like a kind of a cool throwback to those earlier Star Wars games and stuff like that. Avowed is an open world fantasy RPG, was also well received. Metaphor Refantazo is a JRPG. Looks really, really good. And then, yeah, Starfield kind of won for best of the best. But I should have. I even edited this article, and I didn't dawn on me to chime in and be like, "Wait, hold on, you're all missing Fable." But maybe I'll go in and edit that. Zach, why don't you explain first of all? Well, talk about what your favorite game was, and then go
Mm.
into Starfield. I didn't get to watch a lot of coverage on Starfield, so
Yeah, yeah.
uh, you
So
can handle that.
yeah, so my favorite I think was also Fable. I'm a huge fan of Fable. Of my four big gaming franchise, I think Fable was certainly in that four. I've played all of the games, the original one, the second one, and the third one. And most people prefer the second one, I think, or choose it as their favorite. I choose Fable 3 as my favorite. I don't know why. I just liked that game quite a bit more than the second one. But yeah, I'm excited for Fable 4 or this Fable reboot, I guess. And you're
Yeah, it's a
totally right that
reboot, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The trailer looks amazing. But yeah, so for other games that they announced that were on my list of favorites, Cities Skylines 2, technically not announced at the event. They announced it a couple of months back, but we got our first look at gameplay and stuff. I'm a big fan of Cities Skylines. I've put hours and hours into this.
That was a
The
very
PC.
popular game.
Yeah,
Yep.
I must have put over like. I'm not a hardcore City Skylines gamer. I have rookie numbers compared to professionals, but I've played well over like 50 hours of it on my Steam account at this point. I've played that quite a bit. For me anyway. And I love the first
Why
game.
don't you explain what kind of game that
Oh
is
yeah,
for
so
people who don't
Cities
know?
Skylines is a city builder. It's a simulator, kind of like Sim City but better. This is the game that took the crown from Sim City, Cities Skylines, and so you can create cities as big as you want, more or less. And the first game was fantastic. And what makes the first game so amazing is the modding community. There are so many mods and stuff you can download and install for this game to enhance it and whatnot. And the second game is sort of taking the best of those mods and integrating them as first party sort of features in there and stuff, like being able to control lanes in the road and stuff. Like this game, you can get so minute and so detailed about this game. You can literally change how traffic lights work on certain lanes and certain roads, split roads up, do all sorts of things. Depending, you can change the buildings, themes and whatnot. You could different districts. You can have different like groups of districts that with certain city policies for one side and the other. You could do so much with it. It's like you could do more than I've ever done with it, basically. And City Skylines 2 is just building upon that. Updated graphics, of course, more custom. I think their weather will now be part of the base game. Weather was a DLC for the original one, but this one will have day and night cycles and weather as part of the actual base game, which is fantastic. And that's coming October 24, and it will be available on Xbox Series X and S, and it will be on Game Pass. So even though this is a cross-platform device, and it's not a cross-platform game, and it's not built by an Xbox game studio, will be on Game Pass, and you will be able to play it on Xbox and I guess PC if you're using the Microsoft Store version. So that's going to be fantastic.
So do you get to attend zoning board meetings?
Yeah, you do zone areas and stuff, yeah, but no, there's no meetings. There is a little. I assume it's in the second game. So in the first game, there's like a little Twitter icon, and you can click on it, and there's like an in-game Twitter where people are complaining or praising your city, and you can like respond to people's complaints on Twitter and stuff, which is kind of funny. I assume that's
like
second.
I appreciate like the complexity that goes into this. I think it's hilarious that humans are like,
I know, right?
just want to play this stuff. Like, I want to build roads and stoplights and do all this stuff like as my hobby versus like, it sounds like to me like a boring job. But
well, it's a digital dollhouse, really, isn't it? People love
exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. But it's the same effect with Minecraft, which you and I would play Minecraft just to hang out with Jez, and we would just BS around. Meanwhile, people are building like, well, here's a replica of the pyramids, 1-to-1 accuracy. It's like, oh my god, what are you doing? But people get really obsessed with that stuff. I don't think I'm a part of that crowd. Maybe if I had the time, but yeah, Skylines definitely looks a lot of fun.
Yeah. A couple other standout games that I want to just briefly mention here. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, a sequel to the 2020 release that came out, I guess, 3 years ago now, or 2 years ago-ish. So Microsoft Flight Simulator, obviously that was a very popular flight simulator game in the past. Flight Simulator X was sort of the game for a long time. Then the franchise sort of died. 2020, it made a return with a new graphics engine and better simulation stuff. And it was, I believe, very successful. Lots of DLC for it and stuff. They've just announced the 2024 release. And they are pitching it as a new game, which is interesting. That's got a lot of players worried because I think a lot of players have invested a lot of money into DLC and setups for the 2020 edition of the game. And based on what I've read about the 2024 game, it's not an update. It's not a DLC. It's a new standalone game. So, and the big new thing in this one so far, at least of what they've talked about, is there are now jobs you can do. So in the 2020 game, it's more about just flying around and sort of enjoying being a pilot. The 2024 game has actual jobs that you can do, which include flying around in airplanes and helicopters, such as putting out forest fires or rescuing people with a helicopter, doing deliveries like long haul cargo flights and whatnot. There's like a career mode in the game, and so that's a nice way of enhancing the experience, I guess, because I think for a lot of people, if you're not a diehard simulator fan, you load up flight sim and it's like, okay, now what? Great, I took the plane off, what do I do with it? Now this will give you an objective and a goal to achieve when you're flying around in a plane or a helicopter, so that's cool. Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, this is DLC, but to my knowledge, it's also more like a soft reboot for the game. It enhances every aspect of it, including the original sort of storyline. It adds an additional story quest, I guess, storyline for you to sort of follow from the beginning of the game. And it obviously enhances the game as well. As we all know, Cyberpunk 2077, when it launched, was not great. Lots of quite buggy. But this DLC, and they fixed it a fair bit since then anyway, but this DLC is supposed to sort of, I think, polish it off and make it a good enough game now. So yeah, Jez says if you haven't played Cyberpunk 2077, don't play it yet. Wait for this DLC, which to my knowledge is coming in a few months, maybe September. Yeah, September 26th, and start your game once the DLC is downloaded or out, because it will enhance your gameplay experience apparently. So that's cool. Any others? I don't think so. We should also mention Microsoft did announce, technically they announced some new hardware. Nothing huge though. They announced a black version of the Xbox Series S with 1 terabyte of SSD storage. Microsoft said that was a big complaint from Series S users, that the 512 gigs of storage that it came with originally was just too small. And you know, those complaints are correct. If you do have an Xbox Series S, you'll likely know that you can only really install 4 or maybe 5 games on it before it's full, because Xbox games these days are ginormous, and unless you've got like an expansion stick for it, which costs as much as the console itself, if you want like 1 terabyte, literally no point. So now they're upping the storage to 1 terabyte on this new black model. However, it is $50 more, so you now be paying $349. That's still $150 cheaper, I think, than the Xbox Series X, which may be substantial for some, but I think if you're only $150 away from the Series X, I think you should just spring for the extra money, right? And get the more powerful console. I don't know. Maybe there's a market for a $349 less powerful Xbox console. But there you are. All right, so the Starfield Direct stuff. So Starfield was certainly the star of the show at this showcase. It was their sort of flagship product for the event, and that's because lots of gamers have been waiting to hear about what this game's going to be about, and it's essentially Fallout in space. If you've played Fallout, you're probably going to enjoy Starfield. Obviously there's new mechanics and whatnot. One of the big things that I saw them showing off is the ability to build your own spaceships, and it's not just like presets, but it looks like you can actually literally build your own spaceships in any sort of design you want, with corridors and an external chassis, and fly them around, which I think is really awesome. If you've played No Man's Sky, very reminiscent of No Man's Sky, but with a more serious tone. Like No Man's Sky is quite wacky. They kind of lean into the whole everything's an alien, and so everything's randomly generated to look weird. Starfield is looking more like a serious game, which I'm actually a huge fan of. I think this looks amazing. And yeah, it's an RPG, so it's open world, I guess open space. You can fly to different planets, you can talk to people, collect things, build your career or like your stats and whatnot. And yes, it has an actual release date as well now. Remember, this was supposed to come out earlier this year, I think, and then they delayed it. But it now has an official launch date of September 6th, 2023 for Xbox Series XS, Windows PC, and of course, it'll be available day one on Xbox Game Pass, which is amazing. These sort of games I'm never going to buy because I have Xbox Game Pass and I just download it and play it like that. Because why wouldn't you? Unless, actually, the only time that they get me with buying a game still is when pre-ordering the game gives you the perk of accessing it early. Like some games are doing that now where Game Pass day one, however, 5 days early access if you pre-order it. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, Diablo 4 was like that.
Yeah, I guess I'll pre-order it then. See, that's how they still get my money. So if
the game's already out now. So
no, for that one, yeah. But
just for retroactively, just for making a good decision.
Yeah. So that's Starfield, and yeah, I believe the takeaway, most gamers were pretty impressed, pretty happy with what they were looking at, and as Dan mentioned, Microsoft needs to get this one right because the last few Xbox first party game launches have been kind of meh. Redfall did not do too well. Whatever came before that
Yeah.
didn't stick around for too long. So Starfield is their next big bet, and it has to do well because it's Bethesda's first big Xbox exclusive IP release. And I think what's after Starfield? I think it's Elder Scrolls 6, right? Which will be massive as well. But that's probably not. That's probably a few years out. But yeah, this is Starfield, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm probably going to give it a go for sure. I wasn't a huge fan of Fallout 4, but I do like space. I prefer the setting of space over the setting of post-nuclear war.
Yeah, I can do. For me, it's probably space, post-nuclear war, and then way at the bottom, fantasy.
Right. Yeah.
Dragons and knights and ugh. Although that said, I'll still play Fable just because it looks hilarious. I can overlook things. I should also mention Fable is developed by Playground Games. And if you haven't heard them, you should have. They're behind the Forza Horizon series.
That's right.
And let's put it this way. We've played Forza Horizon. Like, I do not like racing games. I'm just not into them. Forza Horizon, though, I got into that for a while. Like,
yeah, you did.
that was a fun game. Like, because it wasn't all, it was about racing and stuff like that, but there were like some really cool missions. Of course, our favorite thing was the Hot Wheels. They did where they created a real world Hot Wheels track, like the toys that you can do loop de loops in and all this kind of stuff. And that was a fun game. And so for them to be able to take a genre that I'm just not into because I just don't have the timing and reflexes for it and make it fun like that, goes to show you something. So I have a lot of high hopes for that game. I will say
the original Fable games were the story was about basically following in the footsteps of your ancestor who was maybe for the second or third game at least. I can't remember the plot for the first game, but the second and third game, the story is your dad was a king of the land, and then maybe this is just the plot of the number 3. I can't remember, but then your brother or his brother takes over when the king dies, and then you have to fight your way back. You have to build an army and take over the royal family and reinstate yourself as leader of the land. I don't know if the reboot's going to follow that same plot or not. I don't know if the character Teresa will be in it, because Teresa was in all the previous games and stuff. But we'll see. But the idea was in the original ones that it follows the same generation of the same bloodline at the very least. Like I think there's 50 years between the second and the third game, So I'm wondering if that would be the same or really different. The idea of giants, I don't remember being in the original run, so that might be a new sort of, I guess, aspect to the universe. But real quick, before we move on for this topic, I just want to mention a couple of additional things they announced. Xbox One games are done. They are no longer making games for the Xbox One series of consoles. So if you have an original Xbox One for 2013 or 2012, whenever it was, an Xbox One S or an Xbox One X, those are not getting any new games. Every developer building games for consoles currently are now targeting Xbox Series S and X and up. So if you're an Xbox One user still, your time has come. I mean, you keep using the Xbox One consoles. They're still going to be updated and supported.
I guess I should sell mine.
Yeah.
I have like 5 of them.
Yeah, right. Here's maybe not though, because what's really nice
about... You can stream the games.
Yes, that's what I was saying. What's really nice, what Microsoft has done here is they've turned every Xbox One into an Xbox Cloud device. So even if you have an Xbox One that doesn't run Starfield or whatever future games get launched, if it's on Game Pass, if it's on Xbox Game Cloud, you can play it using the Xbox One. The Xbox dashboard now has built-in cloud streaming for games, and yes, those games, even if they don't run on the Xbox One natively, will still be available in the catalog, and you can hit A on a controller and you can instantly start playing it with your Xbox One controller using an Xbox One connected to your big television. And I think that's really cool of them to do that, because I'm sure there's millions of Xbox Ones out there just sort of not doing much these days, and in a couple of years' time, someone might be like, oh, I want to try that new game, and realizing they can't play it natively but can stream it. That's really cool, I think. So well done Microsoft for doing that for those Xboxes. And is that everything? No. I think so. I just want to say lastly, there was no Halo news, and that made me sad.
Let it go. I think Halo and Gears of War are going to be a little bit on hiatus for a while. So
rubbish. best
I
IPs
think
and Xbox does nothing with them.
I think Gears of War did better though than Halo, but I don't know that for sure. So I do have two limited edition Gears of War Xbox Ones though. One's in blood red and it has like these claw marks in it. The other one's
Yeah.
snow white and it's like looks like it's been frozen and stuff. So if anyone wants to buy those,
Yeah, well, that's actually a
they're,
good point.
they're literally.
Have you noticed that they've not really done many themed consoles for the new generation? I've not seen any
I
themed
know.
Series S or Series X ones apart from the Halo Infinite one. We've had none others, I don't think, to my knowledge, which is weird,
Yeah,
right?
maybe they didn't sell well. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
but you think they would. But I still want to see. I should also mention my best friend sent me over a trailer for Squirrel with a Gun, which I don't know if that's on Xbox or what, but just look up that trailer, Squirrel with a Gun. It's pretty hilarious. Um, and it's literal.
Yeah.
It's not a metaphor. But yeah, I still want them to do a Robotech game. I know the IP around that is kind of all over the place, so it's probably going to be difficult. There's still rumors that they're going to do a Robotech live action film. It probably would be bad, but it could be so good. And you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. Have you ever seen Robotech?
No.
Yeah. So you should. I don't know where if it's streaming anywhere, but you should watch the Robotech, the first generation. It's such a good story. It's based on the Macross saga, which is it's so. I'm just gonna go off on a tangent for a sec. In the United States, Robotech is a thing. In the rest of the world, or at least in Japan, it's not. So, Robotech was a an attempt by a company here. I forgot the name of the company, but they wanted to bring Japanese anime over. And because of the way the seasons worked in Japan and stuff like that, there weren't too many. So they took like three separate cartoons that happened to take place in space and involve like robot like suits you would wear, and they just linked them all together and redid the dialogue. So there's like three generations of Robotech series,
Wow.
and but they're technically, if you go to Japan, they're completely different cartoons altogether. But if you
That's
grew up in the
crazy.
U.S., you're just like, yeah, you're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, that's just Gen 2 or Gen 3 with the Invid invasion and stuff. And it's like, no, it's nothing to do with it. But the first one, Macross, and they've done like a lot of sequels to it and story expansions and stuff. It's a really awesome story, though. Put it this way, my SO, even she liked it. She ranked it higher than like as far as sci-fi and everything. It's like on her like almost number one or number two. She thought it was
Wow.
like she just really was into it, which is it's funny, but it's maybe something to do a video game around that. At least a good one. All right. You got an ad read. So
Yes. So real quickly, I want to thank Indeed for sponsoring this episode. Where's a game where no one wins? What's a game, sorry, where no one wins? Of course, it's the waiting game. When it comes to hiring, don't wait for great talent to find you. You can find them first with Indeed. When you're hiring, you do need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed is a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. They streamline hiring with powerful tools that find you matched candidates, and with Instant Match, over 80% of employers can get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data in the US. One of the things we think is pretty great about Indeed is that they do the hard work for you. Indeed shows you candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your description straight away, immediately after you post, so you can hire much faster than competing platforms. Indeed's hiring platform also matches you with the quality candidates straight away as well. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where you only pay for the applications that meet your must-have job requirements. Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring platform, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to a 2019 survey from Talent Nest. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. So you can start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/WCP. That offer is good for a limited time only. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/WCP. Just go to Indeed.com/WCP and support the show by saying you heard about this on our podcast. Indeed.com/WCP. Terms and conditions do apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And with that, let's talk about other things. What else happened this week? Oh, Intel.
Intel.
Yay.
Yeah. So this was the rumor came out earlier this spring. It was interesting. because Intel actually chimed in officially and said, like, yeah, that's basically true, but we'll share more details later, which is kind of, I like when companies kind of do that. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
sort of
nice.
like, fine. So what's the big deal here? So they are doing a revision and rebranding of their core processors, which, if you know, PCs are the main line of chips that they make for consumers and enterprise. So what's going on here? So currently, if you bought, like, say, a really modern laptop, uh, it would be like an Intel Core i7 1355U, right? Again, Core i7 1355U. And technically, the whole thing would be Intel 13th generation Core i7 1355U. That'd be the actual whole name, so it's 13th gen. But, like, what does the I stand for? Honestly, I don't even remember. But, like, so why is it a Core
Intense.
i7? Yeah, I for Intel. I don't know. The 1355U. All right. Well, the 13 already in there is already designating, technically it's a 13th gen. So there was like a 1255U, right? So you have a 13, so that's just the generation number. The 55 is the model number, the chip, and the U refers to the tier, right? So there's U tier, there's
Hmm.
P, and then H. And that scales up based on power consumption: 15 watt, 28 watt, 45 watt. There's also H and HX, right? HX is another 65 watt, I think it is. It's basically a desktop processor that was made mobile. So when you go, if you see a U chip, well, you're supposed to know that's a 15-watt processor. Is that the lowest one? I actually really like the U chips. They're very fast and efficient, but they're more power efficient too, right? The P's you'll see in the XPS 13 Plus is a P processor, and it's packed into a really tiny laptop, and it's really powerful actually. It blows away previous generation H series processors, which were 45 watts. And then the H series are reserved mostly for gaming laptops, workstations. The Dell XPS 15 and 17 use H processors, right? So bigger devices that need more power. Uh, so it was a kind of a mouthful for the name. So what they did was, well, for one, they're dropping the I, which is good because it really served no purpose. So it's just Intel Core processor. That's what you're going to just call these, not I processors, just Intel Core processor. And then the processor tier would be Intel Core 5 processor. So you go Intel Core 5, Intel Core 7, Intel Core 9. And I guess there's no threes anymore. Uh, and so then the full tier would be something like, we don't know if they're going to call what's called Meteor Lake, that's the code name for it, if they're going to call that their 14th gen. Presumably they would be because they're on 13th gen right now. I say presumably because we don't know with all this rebanding stuff. They may just be like, we're resetting the generation tiers and we're starting new, right? So that could happen, I guess. I don't think that will happen, but it could. Assuming everything holds true and similar to where we are right now, you'd have basically an Intel Core 7 1455U chip, right? So the Core i7 tells you, it's one of their fastest. There's a Core i9 that's higher, of course. The 14, again, generation number, 55U is the designation of the chip. But they may be changing that, right? They may call, instead of U, P, and H, they may have different designations. We don't know yet. They didn't go into detail there. There's also an Ultra label now, Intel Core Ultra. So you have Intel Core Ultra 5, Intel Core Ultra 7, Intel Core Ultra 9. Those are going to be higher tier ones, obviously. But we don't know necessarily what that specifies because, like I said, we haven't heard if they're doing U, P, and H yet for these devices. If they are, I guess these would be the H series chips. I don't know. Some questions remain there. And, nothing's new really here. Back in September 2022, they ditched Celeron and Pentium finally. So now those are just called Intel processor. So rather generic. I'm sure there'll be a model number after that, but just Intel processor, no Celeron, no Pentium. And then they just run Intel graphics. So they are obviously trying to simplify things. Now, Meteor Lake, I've talked about previously on this podcast, is going to be a really big deal. Whereas 12th and 13th gen switch to P and E core, the big little architecture that ARM uses, the focus has been on performance, really on desktop. It really hasn't been on efficiency. They're not really worse than current 11th gen chips for efficiency. They're just not any better either. So I'm noticing a lot on 12th and 13th gen laptops, basically similar battery performance to 11th gen. The difference is you're getting much more performance. Performance cores focus on, if you have an app that's your main window that you're using at the time, say you're video editing and you're outputting that video, those will get P cores. Things that run in the background will get E cores. So then if you minimize that app, it'll switch to your E cores. So if you switch to a new app, you'll get all the focus there. And the point of that, of course, is kind of obvious, right? Whatever task you're looking at, you want to have the performance cores so you don't experience stuttering or slowness, right? And so that's what those cores are supposed to do, as well as be more efficient. And all this ties into Windows 11 itself, which has a scheduler that basically helps manage all this stuff with the app. So there's no drivers to install. The operating system already knows, oh, you're looking at that window right now. That's your main focus. I would give those to the P cores. And there's some more refinements going on with this as things switch over. Basically, like if you're not using the P cores, some E core stuff may be able to switch back to the P cores automatically. So they're trying to make this even smarter and more efficient. All right, so that's 12th and 13th gen. That's why I say if you're looking for new laptops, yeah, 13th gen are slightly faster, as always, but you could save a lot of money and get a 12th gen. Just do that because there's no significant difference. There's a major difference between 11th and 12th gen for performance. There's across the board. This is a performance jump you really feel even in laptops. Like it's very noticeable. All right, so that's 12th, 13th gen. 14th gen, Meteor Lake is switching to a new, more comprehensive design that I believe involves chiplets. They break the little processor into separate components, but it's more of a, I forget what they call it, but it's a more inclusive chip design that's also going to be more efficient. Some early reports are saying it could be 15 to 30% more efficient than 13th gen. That's a massive jump, meaning, yeah, more battery life, right? So this is going to be a really big deal. These are supposed to really now compete with Intel's M series chips, right? This is their attempt to compete with those designs, just like Qualcomm's Orion is that attempt, right? Up until now, it's been funny. They've been beating Apple on half the argument, meaning, yeah, a 13th gen Intel chip will actually can blow away an M2 and M2 Pro processor in terms of speed in laptops. Like they really do get, especially on single core speeds, they can really do perform significantly faster. Where they don't compete on is, as I mentioned earlier, efficiency. So that's where the Apple still has the edge, where you can get like 10 hours out of a laptop while running that processor. Of course, Apple still has some advantages in their software and driver optimization that just will never be in Windows, right? This is one reason why people like using certain Apple software, because it's really, really optimized. So that's still an advantage for them, but this is where Intel is supposed to catch up with that stuff. So that's Meteor Lake. Rumor has it, and speculation, and what Intel's been saying is it's supposed to come out later in 2023. There were rumors that there were problems with this line and it might get delayed or some of it may be canceled. What I've seen from Intel so far internally doesn't suggest that's true, but we don't know all the details. I do think we'll hear a lot more about, and by the way, all these changes I just mentioned with this branding only happens with Meteor Lake going forward. So if you have a 12th gen processor, it's still Intel 12th gen, Core i7, blah, blah, blah. It still remains the same. This only starts with Meteor Lake. But this is a smart thing. Now, anyone listening to this is probably like, that still sounds complicated. And you're not wrong. And I've talked to Intel extensively about this because I had the same thing, right? Because when you go buy a MacBook, it's like, I get an M2 or an M2 Pro, or does it M2 Max? That's it, right? Those are your only options you have, unless you're going to go for an older one, in which case it's an M1, M1 Pro. I don't know if there's M1 Max. I think there is. But that's it. Those are the only tiers. That's the only decision you have to make, right? And it's pretty clear. Now, to be fair here, Apple only makes a couple laptops, like literally, right? There's MacBook Air, MacBook Pro. They come in different sizes. And then they have their desktop and their mini. And that's kind of like about it, right? So they have a much simpler portfolio. Intel has a bigger challenge. They make processors for consumers and enterprise. And their OEM partners want flexibility. They want to be able to design super thin and light laptops, right? In which case, you're not going to put an H series chip in there. You're going to want something like a U series to go into that device. And then you're going to want different pricing tiers because the more variety you can offer, the more budgets you can hit. Like if they just sold Core i7s or Core 7s U series and they didn't have the fives, that would knock up the price significantly higher. And you might not even need that much processing speed, right? So they offered a Core 5, which brings down the price a little bit. So all this is driven mostly by OEMs who want diversity and flexibility in these chips. And that's just what Intel's done. So that's why there's 3 tiers, U, P, and H. And then there's 3 sub tiers of 5, 7, and 9. And there's this ultra branding and stuff. And then there's Intel Evo, which is a certification that meets, so Intel set a certain specifications up saying if you meet Evo requirements, this laptop will turn on within like 2 seconds. It's going to have a full HD web camera. It's going to be maximized power efficiency. It's going to have a precision touchpad. Like they have all these requirements. And if a laptop meets those, they get a little sticker. And the idea is like if you see Intel Evo, that laptop is pretty much maximized and is using all the stuff that Intel offers to OEMs to make a really great laptop. And so that's going to stick around too. So it's still complicated, but like I said, Intel, they're in thousands of laptops that come out every year versus just the couple of variations that Apple has to contend with. So I don't know how they can make this any easier. You still need those model numbers, and they have different core counts, different top speeds and all this kind of stuff. So it's always going to be a little bit.
I do think this rebrand does go away though to making it less complex. Like the fact that it's just Core 5, Core 7, Core 9 now. Yeah, they've still got those sub bits that make it a little bit more complex. But to an end user, I think you only really need to know, is it a Core 5 or a Core 7? If you're looking at a Core 9, then you're probably somebody who's more interested in the extra details. But a Core 5, I think, is the mainstream one for most people, right? And yeah, you can probably still get like a P series or a U series or whatever they've changed it to. But I don't think your average buyer even cares. Like the only thing I think what Intel's trying to do really is just simplify the surface level of things so that it does sort of match 1-to-1 with Apple M silicon, right?
Sure. And AMD.
Yeah, and AMD.
Well, because AMD initially kind of copied Intel and its numbering system. And now Intel's kind of copying back by getting rid of the I and just matching the numbers. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's all branding stuff, obviously. But they should just be like good, better, best. That's basically what they're branding, right? They're just using numbers rather than words. But yeah.
Yeah, it's like an i9, I think, is only in the H series, which makes sense. i9 is a real extreme processor, and then HX is also extreme. So, yeah, I think this is a really good move. Should it be simpler or ideally? Yeah, but like I said, OEMs want this flexibility with having different SKUs so they can make your $500 PC and they can make your $3,000 PC and everything in between. And you can't do that if you just have like 3 chips. Like that's why Apple laptops are so expensive, generally speaking, right? They all start at like $1,200 and up. They can't go lower. And even if you do go up, certain to the $2,000 range, the chip options limit you on the cost of everything else, like RAM and SSDs and all that kind of stuff, right? You could buy like a U series laptop and put 32 gigs of RAM in it, right? And the one I'm using right now has that. But you can't do that on certain Apple devices, right? There's like configuration options and limitations. So it's a complicated problem, but I think this is a good thing. I think Intel's caught a lot of flack the last couple of years. I've said that, a lot of that was earned, but AMD lit a fire on them. Qualcomm is there now too. Orion is a potential challenger to both. But I think Intel long term, they still have some cooler technology. They're a little bit more advanced. They have their VPU, what they call their visual processing unit, which is basically an NPU, but it is a dedicated co-processor for AI. That's going to be mandated in a lot of laptops going forward. And we talked about how that's going to be a thing that's used in Windows 12. It handles onboard processing for a lot of the camera stuff and microphone stuff that blurs your background. Yeah, you can make your processor blur your background. It's inefficient and drains your battery. The VPU is something like 10 times more powerful than the CPU for AI related tasks, but uses 1/5 the power. So there's your selling point of why NPUs, or what Intel calls its VPU, is going to be a big deal, at least for localized AI processing. That's why people are trying to break this stuff down. Yeah, we'll hear more, I'm sure, later this year. I have a very good suspicion we'll hear a lot more on Meteor Lake soon or in the coming months because, yeah, I just know.
Nice.
But we'll leave it at that. Let's go through some reviews. We did have a bunch of reviews go up this week. So Jennifer Young reviewed the new Q 16-in-1 docking station. Docking stations. They're the
16 in one.
yeah, it's always how many numbers can you put in there and how many ports. So 16-in-1 is definitely a lot. But these are cool, right? If you have a laptop and stuff like that, and you want to connect up to a desk and have everything go through everything, well, this is what you want. You can connect up to 3 4K displays with this puppy, which is pretty awesome. She gave it a 4 out of 5, which is really good. And let's see what the price is on that. I'm not even sure it's on Amazon. Oh well, we'll figure out the price later. But yeah, that's the new Q61 docking station. You reviewed a mini PC, which we'll be doing a little bit more of on the site because they're kind of interesting stuff. You want to talk about the B-Link?
Yeah, so this is the B-Link actually makes lots of these, like lots of different configurations and models, ranging from what I have here, which is it's a slightly older chip on the inside, but it's a newish product. It came out only less than a year ago. It has a Ryzen 7 5800H in it, which is, I guess, 5th gen Ryzen. I don't really remember now, 5th or 6th gen. I guess 5, right? 5800. But yeah, that's a pretty great Ryzen chip, mostly for high end laptops, but perfect for a mini PC like this. And like I said, they've got this is the Sur 5, the SER5 Pro. They have a Sur 6 line, and I think they're about to launch a Sur 7. And obviously, the higher the number that goes, the more recent generation chip they're using. This is the Sur 5, and it's great. It really is. CPU performance is fantastic. It's really good as a tiny productivity machine. It has 32 gigs of RAM, 500 gigs of SSD storage. But what's nice about these is that you can open them up and upgrade some of the components. So I can get in there, I can give it more RAM if I wanted to, I can give it more storage. There's an empty bay in here for an additional 2.5-inch HD or SD, HDD or SSD. So if you wanted to upgrade, add to the storage rather than swap out the SSD that's already in there, you could do that, which is fantastic. And it's all, you undo 4 screws, you take it all apart, and basically you're in, which is really cool. And yeah, these are basically fantastic for, as I said, productivity work. If you're working in office or even doing light to medium creativity tasks, editing video, Photoshop stuff. The only downside to it is the GPU, and that's because this generation's integrated GPU wasn't great. It's a Vega RX 8 in here, I believe. Now, like I said, B-Link does have newer products with more recent Ryzen chips, which will have much better GPU performance. But this is great for people who may not need GPU performance. If you are somebody who really is only doing that sort of office work or light creative workflows, it's fantastic. It's probably the most powerful mini PC I've ever used currently, and this is I almost decided to just have this and use it as like because you can attach it to the back of like a monitor because it's so small and light. I was tempted to attach this to the back of the Surface Hub 2 that I have, just plug it in and then use this as the brain for the Surface Hub 2. The only problem is the Surface Hub 2 doesn't output it at native res at 60 hertz, which is so annoying. It only outputs at 30 hertz, so that killed that idea. However, with the upcoming upgrade later in the year, hopefully that allows for output at 60 hertz, and if it does, this is going on the back of the Surface Hub, and I'm just going to use this as the brain of the Surface Hub because it's way more powerful than a Surface Hub, quite significantly. And so yeah, these are really, really, really cool. I do like I like the design. I know Dan said it's kind of goofy looking. I think they're cool, and they're stackable as well. So you can have multiple of them and stick them on top of each other, which is great for developer workflows and whatnot. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be, as Dan mentioned, we'll be reviewing more of these. Apparently, Lenovo has on the way. B-Link has so many of these. I'm sure I'll get another one in at some point to review. I'd love to review their higher end ones just to see how the performance is. Because you'd think that, that these thermal throttle, and they do a little bit, don't get me wrong. It's not like they don't thermal throttle at all. However, it's not bad. Like this one, running the benchmarks a bunch of times, it slows down a tiny bit, but you wouldn't notice it really. You can hear the fan, and that's probably the weakest part of it. The fan's kind of annoying in there, but other than that, I think this is really kind of cool, and yeah, I like it. I just wish the Surface Hub would allow me to run it at native res.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge right there. Well, that's kind of cool. Like I said, we'll be doing a little bit more of those smaller PCs. Lenovo just came out with a cool one, which we'll be taking a look at soon. Speaking of Lenovo, ThinkPad X1 Yoga Gen 8 review, still 2-in-1 champion for remote worker. So this was done by Ben Wilson. It is an interesting review because Ben's never used a 2-in-1 laptop in his life. And so his first exposure to it was a ThinkPad X1 Yoga, which, as you should know, is an enterprise laptop, although some consumers buy it too because it's just an awesome laptop. Gen 8, so it's been around for a few years. No significant design changes for this year, but it's mostly been an upgrade internals. And it's he gave it 4.5 out of 5. He's been really, really impressed with it. And it does look like a pretty solid laptop. I've always kind of liked the Yogas. You have the built-in stylus, obviously. It's really convenient. Plus, all of Lenovo's ThinkPad software, which is pretty cool. The big competitor to this would be the Dell 9440 Latitude, which I'm currently looking at. And that's a heavier laptop. I mean, it's like 3 pounds. So it's not light, but it's because it's metal. It's mostly metal. And it also has a pretty large battery in it. And that battery does work really well. It also uses mini LEDs for the backlights for the keyboard, which is something that only Dell does currently, and why that's kind of a big deal. Well, backlights on keyboards are awesome, but they're lights and they do drain power. And so the more efficient you can make them, and mini LEDs really, really efficient, the less battery it's going to draw, right? So these uses that. It has some nice display options. I think this one I'm running at is I think it's 2K. I think it's a 2K screen. It's touch, obviously 2-in-1 and all that kind of stuff. It's yeah. And basically, I would say the 9440, it borrows a lot from the XPS 13 Plus, but all in a good way. I mean, my headline probably for this thing is going to be, it's like the better XPS 13 Plus. So, although this only has a U series processor, I think you can maybe get a P series in it, but I'm happy with the U. But it has a haptic touchpad. It's got the same sort of zero lattice keyboard design, has really good audio, nice display, better full HD web camera. It's a cool laptop. I just wish this one had 5G because I would use it all the time. But yeah, it's a really solid one. But we'll take a look at that soon. But can't beat the ThinkPad X1 Yoga. Ben really likes it. We also took a look at the Asus ROG Swift OLED, the PG27AQDM, a truly stunning 27-inch monitor, but it's pricey. Yeah, 27-inch. That's a 4K, I believe. 4K OLED. Let's see what the specs are on this. Yeah, it's 2.5K. 2.5K OLED, HDR10 support, NVIDIA G-Sync. Yeah, anti-glare micro texture. Yeah, it's a cool looking display. So this is a really good one that you can do some gaming with it. No doubt about it. In fact, you have some really good gaming on this. But let's see what the price on that thing is. It is $1,000. Yeah, that's their top tier. Oh, it does a cool LED thing where it shoots it down onto the desk like the logo, which is pretty wild. Let's see what the refresh rate on this thing is. 240 hertz. So this is like some of the new OLED technology that just came out at a CES. Yeah, OLED is finally able to go up to 240 hertz for refresh, which is cool. That was always a limitation on OLED displays, but man, 2.5K, 27-inch, 240 hertz, HDR10. Yeah, I can understand why that's $1,000 display. It's got really thin bezels. That looks awesome.
I just realized. Are you done with the reviews? Let me know when you're done, because there's another news story we need to talk about before we end. It was kind of a big deal. We totally forgot.
Just a couple more. Asus ZenBook 14 OLED is a 14-inch laptop. Amazing battery life for busy people. So yeah, Asus loves their OLED displays. It was a really nice looking laptop if you're looking for. It's got a lot of ports on it too, including full HDMI and a couple of USB, and it even has looks like a micro SD card on there. So that's the Asus ZenBook 14 OLED. She gave that 4 out of 5 stars, $869. That's like a really good price. So this is like the other big change, and this is why it's kind of a big deal. Like it's difficult to find laptops at that price with an OLED display, but they apparently did it. So we also did a few controllers, the Power A Fusion Pro 3 wired controller for Xbox and PC, 4 out of 5 on that one, and the Hyperkin Xenon wired controller review. Is nostalgia alone worth $50? Jennifer only gave that 3 out of 5. She was not completely impressed by it, but yeah, there we go. So that's all the reviews. Make sure you go check them out. We'll have more next week. All right, Zach, what's the big story?
Big story. You can now build your own Surface. Not really. You can buy replacement parts for your Surface and directly from the Microsoft Store. You no longer have to be like a service company or like a partner of some kind. You as an end user can go to microsoftstore.com and order individual components for a selection of Surface devices ranging from the Surface Laptop 3 all the way up to the Surface Studio 2 Plus. And that's great. Like quite literally, you, for example, for the Surface Pro 9, you can order a whole bunch of components: the webcam, kickstand, speakers, SSDs, displays. You can even order a Surface Studio 2 Plus display as a standalone thing, which means we now know the price of the display. If you wanted to buy a Surface Studio 2 Plus display, it would cost you $1,750, which isn't terrible in my opinion, considering the $1,600 Apple Studio display, which doesn't have pen or touch. $150 more for pen and touch, I'm buying that. Sadly, Microsoft still doesn't sell the Studio 2 Plus display as a standalone monitor. Of course, what you will be ordering if you do order that is just a screen that plugs in to a Studio base, so you wouldn't be able to use it as a standalone monitor, not to my knowledge. Maybe someone can hack around it. Recording. Oh, I've accidentally started playing some audio, and I don't know how I've done that. Oh, can I stop that? Okay, yes, I can. Thank you. Yes, and so if you are somebody who has a Surface and you feel like you're good enough to repair it yourself, or if you have a Surface that's out of support, that's kind of the big one here. Is if you have a Surface Pro 8, for example, that's no longer in support and you can't get it serviced by Microsoft, you can give it a go fixing it yourself now. You can order the component you need online. Most people, I think, have issues with the display. Maybe they want to upgrade the SSD. You can now order that directly from Microsoft as well. And the pricing isn't terrible. I don't know, Dan, if you've looked at the pricing for the SSDs. I'm curious on your thoughts, because I know you've covered these SSDs before. Give me a second.
Yeah, I don't think they're cheap.
No. Yeah, give me a second.
I do expect to pay a premium over it, but I didn't check all the SSD pricing yet. But yeah, the downside to this, of course, is only on newer Surface devices, because that's when they start making them accessible to. Right. I don't know if you mentioned it in the post, but they still have the deal with iFixit, where they make the tools to open up these devices and stuff as well.
Yeah, you can order official tools from iFixit, and they're like the ones that Microsoft recommends you use, because that's what their trained technicians use. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the SSD prices here. Also, the SSD prices do change depending on the model you go for, even though I'm pretty sure the SSDs are identical and fit across 8 and 9. But a Pro 8 SSD, for example, for 128 is only $63, whereas for the Pro 9, that same storage is $82. I don't know why they're different prices, but if we're looking at the Pro 9 here, for example, 128 gig SSD is $82, and then you go up to 1 terabyte SSD for $232. So 1 terabyte for $232, that's probably a premium, I imagine. But you do get the cool Microsoft logo on the SSD. So I guess it's all worth it.
There you go.
Also, I'm looking at this, and they specify different SSDs for the Wi-Fi versus 5G model. I'm wondering if that's because, does it come preloaded with... I guess the 5G model might come preloaded with Windows on ARM. They're not empty SSDs, right? I guess. I don't know why they've got them listed differently. But there you go. That's just what I wanted to mention, which is kind of cool.
Nice. Yeah, very cool stuff. Nice to see. Yeah, I think they'll continue moving down this route of having tools for people who want to repair and everything. But all good stuff. All right. Well, I guess that wraps up for the main podcast. I guess we can do thing of the week real quickly. Mine is actually a defense of some movies. I was talking to my best friend about this yesterday. I got bored. And I finally made myself watch some movies, and I was like, I want to watch Black Adam. So I watched that, and then I watched Ant-Man Quantumania. Both movies not well received. I'm not a comic book person, like as in the sense I never really read comics. Like I did briefly as a kid, but I never got into like the Marvel and DC stuff. Um, so I'm not really a huge comic book nerd. If I had to choose between Marvel and DC, I've actually always preferred Marvel. DC
Uh,
characters, Batman and
that's so
Superman.
interesting to me, considering how you usually like more grungy, dark things.
Well, I liked the new Batman movie. Like that was cool. I really did like that take on it. And I liked the Nolan Batman movies. I thought those were pretty cool actually. So I did like those. Superman I always thought was goofy. The first Wonder Woman movie is actually really good. I did really kind of like that one. The second one was too goofy. So but the DC movies have been mostly hit and miss, right? I'm really excited about the Flash. Flash was the one DC character as a kid I actually really enjoyed. So I thought, and the movie's supposed to get pretty good reviews. So I'm kind of excited about seeing the Flash. But Black Adam got kind of panned and failed, and this was in the midst of DC switching leadership, right? And part of the story at the time was that Dwayne Johnson was kind of elbowing his way into the DC universe and kind of wanted to take it over, but be a major influence on the franchise and probably even work in his production company and all this kind of stuff, which is what a business person like him probably does, right? So not surprised there, but I think there was resentment for that. So I went in there, knowing this movie was kind of panned and everything, and I watched it, and it's fine. It's fine. Like, I don't know what people expect from comic book movies. Maybe my expectations are low. I worked in an art cinema for 12 years. I watched so many really artsy things that would confound you if you saw them. I've met David Lynch, John Waters, like they were all guests at the cinema. Like, so I like my independent cinema. I like my artsy stuff. I like weird things. But I also will watch just popcorn fodder. And I watched this movie and I was entertained. I thought it was interesting. It had some twist to it. I thought it was pretty funny. I liked how Black Adam just kept killing people. Like, and they kept kind of yelling at him for murdering people. I thought that was funny. But I watched, I was like, yes, it was a fine movie to watch on a Saturday afternoon. I was not bored. I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't like that was a waste of my time. I was like, all right, that was kind of cool. I don't know. And I would have liked to see, yeah, him go up against Superman. I thought that was kind of an interesting setup at the ends. So like I don't get the blowback. I think a lot of it is because The Rock became so popular and so well liked that now he's like everybody wants to kind of take him down. They want there's been a lot more bad press around him lately, including the XFL stuff. And I think there's just people just getting tired of how successful and positive he is. So, and he is a little bit everywhere. But again, I don't know. I thought it was fine, and I'm not a DC fan, so maybe that says something. Maybe I have low standards. And same thing with Ant-Man, Quantumania. I do like the Marvel movies better. The movie was fine. It was fine. I liked the kid, his daughter playing, and she had the suit. She was great. MODOK, all right, the way they did his face was weird, but I kind of get why they did it too, because they really did like humanize him and they give him a funny redemption story, which I thought was an interesting thing that they always, remember these are humans behind this. And I thought Jonathan Majors, yeah, okay, I know he's got some he's got some external issues right now in his life going on, but he was fantastic as Kang. Like he was so like kind of empathetic almost, like you felt towards him, and like I thought the way he played that role as a bad guy, quote unquote, was really interesting because it poses that moral quandary of like he kind of makes it was like the Thanos thing. It's like, well, he makes some good points, but he's still a mass murderer.
I was gonna say, well, don't get too tied to his performance. 'Cause,
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens, right? It
yeah,
sucks because I really, really enjoy watching him. And it's a shame because like some people have come out, I don't know if they're on the record or off the record, basically say, nah, that's the way he is. He has his like
yeah.
underlying anger issues,
I
which
would
may be
say I
true.
felt
But
I felt the exact same about Kevin Spacey when all that came out about him and he was
yeah,
cancelled.
right,
I
yeah.
loved Kevin Spacey and everything he was in, and then it was just so
Yeah.
sad when he disappeared. Oh no,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
deserved,
Well,
I
it's
guess.
like I've been thinking about that a lot lately too, right? Tom Cruise has this is the same problem with Scientology, right? Scientology is not a
That's
really
right.
great
Yeah, yeah.
religion. People calling it a cult. Although my thing is like, well, all organized religions have have done some terrible things. I mean, should I bring up the Catholic Church
No,
lately or the
let's
last
not
50
bring up
years?
anything.
Yeah, right. So like I think every religion kind of has its like stuff that's bad. And
Yeah,
Scientology's up there too. But Tom Cruise is, a lot of people are like, I refuse to watch his movies because of his association with Scientology, which I guess is fine. Although I think if you stopped watching movies because a person was Catholic, Roman Catholic, people would probably call you, a bigot or
yeah,
something like that. So I don't know. It feels like a little bit of a double standard, but I get it. People, they can make their decisions. I respect that. But I think it's tough because Tom Cruise is so good. Like
yeah,
the action stuff he does in his movies is just bonkers. Like I've watched a couple of the Mission Impossible stuff and how he does his stunts, and it's just like the dude's a little legitimately crazy. And the new Mission Impossible coming out, right? He races the motorcycle off the cliff and parachutes. That's him. They did like 6
yeah,
takes in one day
yeah.
with it. Every time I see that scene, I'm like, what's the setup? At what point
What's
are
the
you on a
point?
motorbike on top of a cliff that you
Yeah,
need to jump off and parachute to get to the bottom? Like, what's that setup? Why does
yeah,
that happen? But it's hard, if you have that moral decision to make, like, same with Jonathan Major, say that he's found guilty. Like, does that mean you can't appreciate his roles and how good he is? Like, it's a tough thing. And I know a lot of people feel that way with Tom Cruise, and I totally get it. But whatever. But Ant-Man, yeah, that was fine. It was fine. I was
yeah.
entertained. Yeah, it was some goofy stuff. I didn't get like a lot of, spoiler alert, the way, the ending happens with the ants and stuff like that. Like, I was fine with that too. I don't know. It's just like, what's everybody complaining about? Actually, I thought the end credit scene was a little goofy, even though it was taken almost directly from the comics. Uh, So, but it was fine. I enjoyed it. I don't know. It was better than Eternals, which I'd never even finished, and I thought it was better
Right.
than the what's the one with the 5 rings? What's his name?
I don't know.
Come on, it's the one that
I only watch Spider-Man's.
yes. Uh Shang-Chi, the Legend the Ten Rings. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Um, that was had funny moments, but I didn't really love that one either. So I
Fair.
don't know. Whatever. That's it. My thing of the week. You got anything quickly?
Yeah, yeah, real quick. I won't spend too much time on it because I don't want to spoil it. But Black Mirror season 6, I think it is out. It came out yesterday, to my knowledge, and I've only watched 2 episodes so far. But so far, I think this is going to be a really good season. The first episode was, I thought it was very good. Without spoiling it, it ties in quite heavily to advances in tech that are happening right now, which has been a big theme for 2023. Plays a part in the first episode, but other than that, yeah, amazing. If you've seen the trailer, you know the first episode is called "Joan is Awful." It's very meta. It's very it's really. You need to watch it. I really don't want to spoil any of it, but it's really good. The second episode is good. It's not as good as the first one, I don't think, but it's a different story about a murder or murders that happened years and years ago. Um, you know how Black Mirror is always about technology? It tries to fit technology in as sometimes futuristic,
Yeah.
sometimes not. I I don't really know what the second episode's fit in technology was, other than they used cameras. Once you watch it, you'll know what I mean. But yeah, second one's less of a. I don't know how it fits in as a Black Mirror episode. It was a great piece of television, but I don't know how it fits as a Black Mirror. Maybe I need to watch it again. But that's kind of what this season's kind of like. I think it's less futuristic this season, although I've only seen 2 episodes. I haven't seen the third, fourth, or fifth. And I know there's a space one coming up, so maybe that's where it gets more techie. I don't know.
Got it. Yeah, I'll try to check those out and I'll chime in next week on my thoughts. But yeah, nice to see Black Mirror finally returned. Nice. All right. Well, let's go do the Q&A with the audience. And of course, for everyone who wants to watch this live, we do this Fridays, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel. Feel free to jump in and watch the live broadcast as well as join our live conversation and do Q&A with the audience. As always, find me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, follows DAC BOWDEN. I want full credit for not talking about Twitter or Elon Musk this week. You're welcome. But anyways, as always, we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Wonderful. So yes, I can't hang around for too long today. I have things I need to be doing, but I'll hang around for a few minutes.
Same here.
If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat now. Make them quick though, because I do have to head off.
Because I'm expiring soon.
Yeah. Oh dear. Do you think Xbox will ever get all the cool AI stuff Windows 12 will get? I don't think it'll get all of the AI stuff. A lot of the AI stuff would be productivity focused, and Xbox is, to my knowledge, not a productivity focused machine. I'm sure Xbox will get AI stuff, and I'm sure it will rely more on game developers implementing AI functions and features into their games more than the Xbox itself. But yeah, I'm sure there will be an AI play in gaming as well. I don't see why there wouldn't be. There was a mention of an updated graphics engine in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Have you heard anything more about it? No, haven't. I've whatever they've said publicly is all we know. I don't really have any sources on the Xbox side of things. Not anymore, anyway. Do you think we may see PCI expansion cards in the future, the same way we have PCI graphics cards and audio cards? I don't know. I think. I mean, technically, I don't see why not, but I don't know if there will be demand for it because I imagine NPUs are just going to be built into the system on a chip, right? At least on Qualcomm side. How are AMD and Intel doing it? Are they? Is it on the processor or?
Sorry, what was the question? I was talking something.
AI chip, like AI PCIe expansion cards. Do you see that being a thing, or do you just think it'll just be embedded on the chips?
I think Intel's pushing to have their stuff embedded on the chips. They want an all-in-one solution.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be with 14th gen. That's supposed to start happening.
Right. Do you think Windows 12
I don't know if we'll see NPU, the NPU PCI expansion cards. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah.
It may be possible. I'm not really sure.
Someone said, not a question, but I just wanted to share that I finally bought the Surface Pro 95D and I'm loving it. I have absolutely no problem with my use cases. It is a device of the future. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I thought the Surface Pro 9 was great as well. The only thing I didn't like about it is that if you've used the Surface Pro X, the Surface Pro 9 5G is just like a heavier, beefier boy. And sort of takes us the sexiness away from what the Pro X was. I really love the Pro X, and the Pro 9 5G for me was a bit of a letdown because it was thicker and heavier. The idea is that I want it to be thinner and lighter, not thicker and heavier. But that's what happens when you recycle the Intel chassis for the ARM version, unfortunately. Doesn't mean you get a bigger battery though, so I guess battery life on the Pro 9 5G is probably better than it was on the Pro X.
Dan, what are your thoughts on using... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you think Windows 12 will undock more features? Probably. I mean, I'm sure they're going to work to a point where everything is undocked, but I don't know what features specifically.
Dan, what are your thoughts on using the Yoga Book 9i for video editing? I mean, technically, it's possible. I would not buy it for video editing. It's fine. It's got a U series processor though. If you heard everything I said at the beginning, the U series is a 15-watt chip and it runs well, but yeah, it's not meant for video editing. You need at least, I would say, a P series to really start to get good results, and an H series if you're going to do it frequently and want your output to be done quickly. Now, can you do it on the U series? Sure, of course you can. It just might take a long time, and scrubbing and everything like that probably won't be a great experience. Let's just say it's absolutely not meant to be for video editing. If you're just doing it once in a while, yeah, bite the bullet. It'll be a little bit painful. I guess you can go down the magic route that everybody has in their head as the ultimate solution of using an external GPU. That could work. You're going to still lose, whatever GPU you put in there, like a 3080. You're still going to lose bandwidth, make it more like a 3060, just because of the way the technology works. It's doable. It's also probably expensive, but that's one way you can get around it. It's just not a very portable solution. So it's only good if you're going to be video editing at home or your office. And there's no, as far as I know, external 40 series eGPUs yet because they're so big. So, yeah.
All right. Last question, and then I do need to head off. With the recent pre-release build of the original Windows 11 leaked this past weekend, do you think there will be more leaks of Windows 11 not released officially to insiders coming anytime soon? I think a website or a group of people found or just shared that they have a bunch of pre-release Windows 11 builds recently, and one of those builds leaked over the weekend. I'm sure the others will leak at some point as well. I don't see why not. All those builds are quite similar, but there's no telling when leaks happen. Leaks are random, they're not planned most of the time, to my knowledge, and it's usually older stuff. These days, it's rare to have a future thing leak early. I know it happened with the original Windows 11 launch. We had that build like a week before Windows 11 was unveiled, and that's honestly really the only time it's more likely to happen, because those builds, to my knowledge, are kind of more public internally anyway, so they're less easy to track who leaks it. But in development builds like currently, when especially from lower branches, a lot less likely to leak these days, because they just are. There's lots of reasons for it these days. I think that Microsoft has gotten a lot better at tracking where builds come from and stuff. So, and also all the telemetry on internal builds as well. Let me tell you now, people who have access to internal builds who shouldn't have access to them, do not use them online, because Microsoft will instantly see you and be like, "What are you doing with that build?" So yeah, the fun of using leaked builds of Windows, especially ones that technically haven't leaked yet, is a lot less exciting these days, because most of them have to be used offline. So what's the goddamn point? All right, that's gonna be us for this week. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep everyone go live. But until then, we'll see you next time. Bye bye.